You're the person who's closest to Izuku Midoriya. That's perfect.
Again,
because it means
debatable.
he'll-
How much of All for One is in control of Shigaraki right now? They really didn't do much with the concept of cold fire, did they? I mean, they did even less with Lemillion, but that's a whole different issue entirely. They focused on Mina quite a bit earlier, and now she's, like, got a spotlight in the opening, along with Tokoyami, so are they getting focused? Because I hope so. I like those two. I feel like in the realm of, man, this show has too many characters who I want to see more of, Mina and most of the female characters would fit into that category. And Tokoyami obviously does too, even though he gets quite a bit. Quite a bit. Other than Uraraka and Toga, there is so little given to any of the female characters. Nejire is basically cannon fodder. Eri gets a fair amount, but is relevant after season 4. Nagant gets a couple episodes and then has been irrelevant since. La Brava is just supplemental to Gentle. Momo gets a bit, but I feel like she hasn't developed substantially since, like, season 2. Hagakure got one scene, and the focus of it wasn't her, it was Aoyama. Mina has gotten practically nothing, and despite that is still one of everyone's favorite characters. Asui is there. That's kind of all she is, though. She's been there for a fair amount of things, but she's never done anything. Like, I'm pretty sure even in the USJ incident, like, the most she did was jump away with Deku and Mineta, and, like, moves them out of the way of villains. I'm pretty sure that's all she did there. Then Class B is obviously irrelevant, but Kendo has also done practically nothing and has only been there to supplement Monoma. A fair amount of Class B has shown up, but Kendo hasn't actually shown up at all so far. Just realized that. Thinking about it, I think, aside from Toga and Uraraka, I feel like the most important female character in this show has been Mount Lady, which is a really weird thing to say. I mean, she's got a decent arc going on that's kind of all in the background, but, like, she should not be one of the most important female characters in the show. Especially when there's plenty of them that have cool powers and cool designs and really likable personalities. Also, I forgot Jiro. That's how irrelevant she's been. I get this is shonen, but, like, you could give some of them at least something to do.
You have to protect Bakugo. He has big plans to graduate from UA and ultimately become the #1 hero.
That felt out of character for Aizawa. He's been worried about them before, sure, but never like that. Even in, like, really dangerous scenarios. He's never sounded like that before. Like, the Hasaikai raid, Deku fought Overhaul one-on-one for quite a while, and Aizawa was less concerned about that. That felt very out of character for him.
You're a zealot obsessed with All Might, if I recall. Well, here's a reality check, Katsuki Bakugo. No matter how high you attempt to fly, you'll always be garbage compared to One for All.
I don't know if this comes from not knowing how much of All for One is taking place in Shigaraki right now, but Shigaraki's writing right now fucking sucks. This is just generic bad guy dialogue. The only semblance of him still being Shigaraki is him being angry at Bakugo liking All Might. That's it. Other than that, that just felt like something an AI would have a bad guy write. That had zero substance. And, like, what's Shigaraki's goal at this point? Like, what's he trying to do? They never have addressed that. Destroy the world or bring it down to chaos. Like, okay, but, like, what does that mean? How? What are you actually physically doing? There's no clear fucking picture for what he's doing. And I feel like there was a decent picture back in season 6. I felt like Shigaraki was handled all right with the Star and Stripe mini arc, but I don't know. Since season 6, it feels like he's kind of been falling apart as a character, which kind of sucks because he was a villain whose journey and descent into villainy was actually kind of interesting to see happen. It's not often you're interested in seeing the villain develop as a villain. That's not really a thing that usually happens. So it's interesting to see, and that it happened pretty well in season 5 and 6, even if it was rushed in season 5. But I don't know, that felt so odd. He feels like a caricature of himself. That's a good explanation for it. It felt like before he actually had legitimate points and arguments that made sense coming from him. Now he feels like, society. Which, it's kind of a running thing in the show, sure, but like, I don't know, I'll keep watching. That just felt odd to me.
Nejire, fight!
Oh look, Nejire did nothing and is immediately about to be taken out.
Venom. Was that your secret weapon? My body continues to adapt. If you keep up these weak attacks, you'll be dead.
This is so fucking dumb. This is literally just Mahito. JJK Season 2 was about 2 months ago at this point for me, so it's still relatively recent in my mind. And this is literally just fucking Mahito. Down to the goddamn expression. The powers, the expression, the mindset. It's just Mahito. I'm going to be honest, this feels derivative of that. And it worked in JJK partly because of that, but also partly because of the fact that Mahito was done that way from the start. This has not been Shigaraki up until now. This feels like a different character to me. And maybe that comes from just not having enough sequences of him fighting heroes. That could entirely be the case. We get almost none of that. He arrives in Season 1, he fights almost no one. He doesn't fight anyone. In Season 1, he did not fight anyone. He watched others fight and then stepped in to hurt, but never actually got involved in the combat at all. Season 2 was the training arc, and then Stain, where he just sent Nomus. He didn't fight anyone. Season 3, he sent the Vanguard Squad, then it was the training arc. He didn't fight anyone. Season 4, he disintegrated a guy, and he took Overhaul's arm, but he didn't fight anyone. Second half of Season 4, Festival. Season 5, mostly hero stuff, then My Villain Academia, where he fights. The first time the main villain of the show fights someone is the end of Season 5. And then the Infinity War happens literally 3 episodes later. And then the Endgame happens the next season. I get Horikoshi was working himself to death, and when it comes to almost any bad manga ending, I blame the people who forced the creators to work horrible deadlines more than I blame the creator themselves. But holy fucking shit, this is so goddamn rushed and so horribly paced. Knowing how long Final War Arc is does not help this. This is a ridiculously long arc, especially given the length of the series. This one arc is a quarter of the series' total length. Can we go back to Season 6? I really liked Season 6. I felt like the villains were at their best. The fights they weren't incredibly well animated, but they were enjoyable. The writing was really solid. I will never get over how good A Young Woman's Declaration is, and how much it doesn't fucking matter. You know how I said I thought I had accepted the ending? Yeah.
You're upset because you've never had any friends! Getting close isn't a problem, but I can't hurt him much. By myself. I'll bring hot.
I would have loved that moment more if this didn't feel like a caricature of Shigaraki. Especially given the lack of depth to anything he says. his current statements feel like empty platitudes. Like, he's saying nothing compared to how I felt in season 6 and 5. He was saying stuff of decent substance, whereas now it's just like, fuck society. I felt like before we got fuck society because, or we need to end the society because, now it's just like, God, society, am I right? Maybe the idea is he's already said his piece, so he doesn't need to say it again. But I did enjoy his reaction, though. That was fun.
If you had people you cared about, you'd see things differently.
Faint. Right. Simon. He's badly injured. Yet.
But he caught the pattern.
Still.
That is not the halfway point. What? It's like a third into the episode.
If you did have friends, there's no way you'd be doing this. You'd want to protect them. Destruction would be the last thing on your mind.
Miku and Tomo said I was really nice, and Moon always barks to go on walks with me. So there, you've got no idea what you're talking about. You don't know me. I've got plenty of friends.
Oops. Sorry.
Ha! In concept, I think I like that moment. I'm not sure about the execution. I think part of what is making it fall flat for me is throughout the show, we're led to believe that he actually does view the League as his allies and his friends. It's a weird group, but we're never led to believe that he's lying when he calls them his friends, or that he trusts them and believes in them. It's never framed as though he was lying about it. With Dabi, like, it feels pretty obvious that he's using them. Shigaraki doesn't come across that way. He never has. At the very start, he did. But especially since season 4, he hasn't felt that way. So him getting so ticked off about not having friends seems odd to me. I feel like they're doing like 6 different things with Shigaraki as a character, and individually I like 4 of those things, but some of them don't mesh well. Because it's the idea of a character who develops more into what they want as a villain and becomes more of a monster as their development progresses. It's someone who is raised by the greatest monster ever lived. It's someone who was just fucking lonely and snapped because of it. It's someone who leads an organized group who want to tear down the current society. It's about someone who is shunned by society and wants to break down what ruined their life. Some of those mix, but I feel like others don't quite as well, and they're kind of feels like it's bouncing between them. It's strange. When we're shown Shigaraki caring about the League, it feels weird that he'd be so set off by discussion of friends. 'Cause up until recently, it wasn't a child inside of him being held back by All For One. It was a grown man who was a man-child who was being propped up by All For One. And that man-child, I feel, has just kind of disappeared from his character, which to some degree is what My Villain Academia was about, is him losing the man-child element and just becoming a major villain. The problem is that version of himself never continued because it immediately got injected with All For One. So now it's just a matter of Madman fighting against All For One while a child inside of him cries. But that's not how a lot of his development went. This is not the direction I think should have been taken with some of these characters.
Tomura and I are supposed to be fully combined. No delineation.
Okay, so this
Something else.
so this is
Part
all
of us
for
that
one.
isn't fully fused. A presence that's neither Tomura nor All for One.
I feel like this concept would have been helped massively if they had combined Tomura and All for One's voices at least for his internal monologues. Because for me, this is Tomura Shigaraki fighting against All for One. But I guess at some point, All for One finally took over? Tomura as a character would never willingly give up his body to All for One. Like, that's not who he was. That's never who he's been. So them merging, Tenko holding them back, I get, but them merging, I don't see. I don't see All for One in this. I see a caricature of Shigaraki, and I do not see All for One. No elements of All for One seem to come through right now. And I think if they were, I would need them to be bouncing between All for One and Shigaraki, not trying to merge them, because that's not what Tomura would be doing. Tomura not fighting All for One on this doesn't make sense. Throughout all of Season 6, he was fighting him on it. To them have just fully combined. Shigaraki was a really interesting villain. Dissolving All for One into him has destroyed what made him interesting and replaced it with a villain I don't recognize. I don't know who this is. I don't know who we're fighting anymore. If that was the goal, I think that was a horrible idea. If that wasn't the intent of the writer, though, that's how it comes across. We spent 5 seasons building up Tomura Shigaraki as the main villain. And then Season 6 began the conflict between him and All for One. And now he's gone. He's no longer as he was. Which kind of negates the entire point of My Villain Academia. Him finding his conviction is irrelevant if All for One takes him over anyway. He already hated All Might plenty. There was no need for him to have more conviction or thought or anything. From what we know, the only reason All for One needed him was the hate for All Might. If he needs him for more, then I guess maybe I'll eat some of these words, but I don't see why that would be a thing. Okay, hopefully I don't need to talk more about Shigaraki. I'm getting kind of sick of doing so. Huh. I want to go back and listen to this music again, because it's like an Imperial March version of All for One's theme. This is so weird. An Imperial March version is probably the wrong wording. I don't know what genre this would be called.
No more
but
distractions.
yeah, it's such a weird sound for it.
Don't push yourself. I got a pretty solid hit in earlier. In fact, I'd bet you're barely able to stay conscious right now.
I won't let you harm me!
What was up with the cape? How did it do this? Huh? He doesn't have any quirks. How is this happening? What's happening with the cape?
Yourself. I got a pretty
Why is
solid
it
hit
straining? How the fuck are you Big 3?
Your quirk lets you stretch out your fingers really long, right? Do you think that'll come in handy? And if your fingers are stretched out, is it super difficult to type? Must be strange. If you can grow your hair out, yeah? Is styling it a lot of work? Do you want to open a wig store?
Just because you've got a quirk that can do anything, doesn't mean you have the right to look down on the rest of us.
Why are you so annoying?
No one wants to hear your voice.
Heroes? Do you have any favorite pros or...
That's how I got to know both of you. How our friendship started to bloom. Getting close to you guys.
This is a waste of time. The writers do not give a shit about Hato. Absolutely not. This is a garbage backstory that barely fits her character, is completely irrelevant, and is probably not going to lead to her doing anything. She's probably going to continue to do nothing. The most interesting part of this backstory is the fact that several of her classmates had quirks that bear a resemblance to what Shigaraki is doing. And the fact that under a better writer, she would probably be considered pretty good representation for autistic people. Hyperfixations being misinterpreted by people who have no fucking idea what they're talking about is very common. As someone who has been actively hoping that she does something for the past season and a half, 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 this feels like a slap in the goddamn face. This is a waste of time because they are not going to do anything with it and do not care about her as a character. And they have made that abundantly clear. At least I'm not talking about Shigaraki for once. Her voice actor is the only reason I care about this. She's putting in the work. The voice cracks are really helping to sell it.
Wow, you're so awesome! You have an amazing power.
Nejire's backstory was just given for the sole purpose of explaining why she's going to support another character. She is Big 3. She is supposed to be rival to Lemillion and Sun Eater. She has not even proven she can rival half of Class 1A. She has not proven she can rival Class 1B. There's a lot of examples in the show of its poor handling of female characters. Nejire is by far the worst. You can't even argue this is the thing of the genre is for boys. Boys only want to see boys doing cool things. The majority of female characters of this show are wildly popular, despite 90% of them doing almost nothing in the entire plot. Imagine how popular they could be if they did stuff, if they were badass too. The designs of this show have always carried it a lot, but especially when it comes to the female characters. Their writing is so often dog shit, and their designs and powers are great, and nothing interesting is ever done with them. Momo can create literally fucking anything. The most interesting thing she's ever done is make a cannon. Funny story, in No Game, No Life, they play a game where any word they say is added to the space they're in, and if it's currently present in the space they're in, it's removed from the space they're in. The first thing said is nuclear bomb. Compare that to Momo, who has made a shield, and nesting dolls, and parts for a floor. I think the worst part is that they had the potential for one of the best female characters in shonen in this show with Uraraka, because her arc is unironically one of the best if you look at seasons 1 through 6. The problem is that the show is not long enough to justify the female lead having so little screen time, doing so little in combat, and being completely wasted in the ending. If you watched the reactions I did for season 6, I probably feel like two different people because I was so in love with what was happening in this show. And they have just continuously been fucking up every single chance they get. I'm willing to look past some of the flaws of the Liberation War because of the fact that that's not the final arc. This is the final arc. The flaws are not only more apparent, but way more egregious and far more unforgivable. Hado not doing something in the Liberation War is extremely frustrating. Her not doing anything in the final war is absolutely fucking ridiculous. It is unacceptable for a character to be put on the level of two of the show's strongest characters, physically speaking, and ones who are relatively strong in their writing. And for her to do absolutely fucking nothing, and for her big moment to be a 2-minute backstory that leads to her empowering one of the other characters instead of doing anything herself. God!
Those words were rays of light. Treasures gifted to me by people.
This better be cool as hell. That definitely went through it. I don't think that was just a visual thing like Bakugo's was, apparently. I'm pretty sure that actually destroyed it. Which is fucking concerning.
I've got to defeat him. Right, Izuku?
No, please!
Don't do this!
Right side.
He's rooting him like Izuku read him. Just realized a fun parallel. I'm going to assume this wasn't intentional, but especially given how poor a lot of the writing has been recently. But Shigaraki starts out very frequently referencing the events of the story as a video game. And now, as the final boss, Bakugo has learned his moveset and is countering it. On the slim chance that that was intentional, that's a great detail. But otherwise, that's just kind of fun. I feel like they're setting up a Bakugo death, but I didn't think that happened.
You have no idea how much I wanted your autograph.
Did his heart just get destroyed?
Don't you get it yet? Your part is over. From now on, this is our story.
Fuck you. I'll be honest, if this fight really does just come down to Deku and Shigaraki, I'll be kind of disappointed. Because Shigaraki has made a seriously heavy point of how none of them are relevant to the fight. Usually when a villain says something, it's disproven by the heroes. That's generally how satisfying storytelling works. I'm a little concerned they're not going to do that. Proving the villain right is usually not the move you want to go for. Okay. It's really late, and I'm really worn out mentally. This has been really frustrating for me, I think. I think it's pretty obvious how I've been feeling. This has been a really frustrating season so far. And the unfortunate thing is I think that if I hadn't seen the ending stuff, I don't think I would have been quite so bothered. I would have been bothered by a lot of stuff. A lot of this stuff isn't affected by the ending, but other parts are influenced by knowing what's not addressed by the end of the story. I'm going to be totally honest. Anytime I rewatch this show, I might stop after Uraraka's speech in Season 6. That's still one of my favorite scenes in any work of fiction I've ever seen, and one of the most emotional experiences I've ever had watching an episode of television. And everything since then, nearly everything, has just gone downhill. And the fact that Final War has been going on since I think episode 5, and that was episode 11. So that's been 7 episodes. And the final war arc lasts a quarter of the manga. So we're looking at about the rest of this season, and then probably another season about this length, maybe a little bit shorter though. And that's how long this arc goes on for. That is stretching this so far out that I can't imagine staying invested. I mean, a lot of the investment that I've shown in this, despite me knowing things that happen, a lot of the investment I've shown is still genuine. I still do genuinely care for the story and am genuinely engaged by a lot of the content within it. Not all of it, but quite a bit of it. A criticism I had during JJK Season 2 was the Mahito fight lasted, 5, 6 straight episodes? And throughout the entire time, I just kept feeling like nothing was happening. I have not watched a lot of really long shows like Dragon Ball, Naruto, One Piece, so I don't know how those are paced. I know people meme about how Dragon Ball's fights are paced and all that kind of stuff, but JJK was the first time I experienced that, because the Mahito fight went on for so long that I stopped, that it was pissing me off. Mahito as a character pisses me off, but that's partly intentional. It went to a degree that I don't think was intentional, because I was legitimately getting infuriated, which I don't normally do with characters I'm supposed to hate. But the fight itself just dragged on and on and on and on. It's just like, oh, Yuji's fighting him because he's mad about that one character's death. And now he's got a duplicate that's being fought by another character, and then that character dies. So then Yuji gets mad again, and he breaks down sad, and then another character comes in to help him and brings him back up on his feet, and then they keep fighting, and the other character gets taken out, and then it's Mahito and Yuji versus each other, and then they're just going at it, and that's just it. That's the whole thing. It's just 3 loops of Yuji loses a fighting partner and then fights Mahito. It's 3 loops of that. And that was only 5 or 6 episodes of fighting. The idea that this goes from episode 5 for the next 40 episodes. Like, no. I am not going to stay engaged with this for that long. All For One and Dabi should have both been defeated by now. The fact that we haven't seen Toga for 5 fucking episodes. Spinner has shown up once in all this time. Can't even remember if there's other villains. Compress hasn't shown up. Longhair hasn't shown up. But then you think about the fact that this is the final arc, and then you think of other things like Gentle not having shown up, like there not having been payoff for Overhaul's storyline, and the whole apologize to Eri thing. And the fact that Shinzo has done basically nothing in any of the fights, or Uraraka's development with Toga just not happening. I feel like I'm going to guess a lot of what's frustrating me is what's been frustrating people who read the manga and has been frustrating them for the past year or two at this point, at least. So I don't know how much value there is to me continuing to ramble on and on and on. So I think I'm going to cut off here. My frustration's pretty clear, and my disappointment probably more so. Actually, it's probably not more so. I'm only really expressing anger, not disappointment. I have been watching this show since not long after Season 1 aired. And as you can tell, I'm not the oldest guy in the world. So I kinda have been growing up with this show. And to see it turn out like this is goddamn infuriating. To spend so many years of my life caring about this story and being connected to it and letting it be a part of my life, for it to just consistently make the most frustrating decisions it can, it's hard to watch and hard to accept. Generally, when experiencing a work of fiction, I like to give the author the benefit of the doubt. When that usually ends is when the story ends. Up until that point, I'm giving the author the benefit of the doubt that they'll bring things together properly as the story has played out so far. And if it doesn't do that, then all the rest of the parts that I gave them leeway during suddenly become points of major criticism instead. Generally, I try to reserve absolute faith for a rare select few writers. I think either because of how well certain parts were written or because of how young I was when I first started watching and how long this has been a part of my life, I think Horikoshi may have been one of those writers I kept giving the benefit of the doubt to. And to some degree, he lived up to that. One of my major issues with the show throughout the seasons prior to 4 is the entire concept behind Stain. The fact that Stain is seemingly portrayed in the right, as being in the right somehow, is baffling to me, because the only hero, we see almost no heroes who act in the way he says all heroes do, yet he's somehow portrayed as being right. I'm assuming that when I do my season 6 reactions, I'll include a little explanation of why I was so emotional for a young woman's declaration. This is more of that explanation, because Uraraka's speech is the payoff to Stain. It's the payoff to that idea that heroes aren't doing enough, that they're not being heroic enough. It's the payoff to that because it makes it clear that the story isn't viewing them that way. The public is. And the story uses Uraraka to tell the main theme, that they're not heroes, they're fucking people. And that is the type of thing that makes me give writers leeway, because that was years and years away from when Stain first arrived and the ideas of the heroes failing the public first came around in this story. And it paid them off so satisfyingly for me. And it developed even further both Uraraka as a character and what I would consider major themes of the show, both of which have now been abandoned by the ending. If you're an anime only watching this, I feel a little bit bad for how much I'm focusing on the ending, because I'm sure a lot of people managed to stay spoiler free, and lucky you guys. But it's just the ending of the story influences my views on everything that happened prior. Another good example is Breaking Bad. I don't know how much crossover there is between anime fans and Breaking Bad fans, but the line, "I did it for me," is the single most important line of dialogue in all of Breaking Bad. Hands down. Those moments of acknowledgement within the story are so goddamn important, in my opinion. And it's why Mushoku Tensei doesn't work for me. There's no acknowledgement, which makes me question if the writer even understands that it's immoral to begin with. The ending thing is also why Code Geass is one of my favorite shows. It's why Nier is my favorite fictional franchise of all time. Nier Automata's ending is the single greatest ending to anything ever made. And I say that having just talked about Code Geass. So when the ending of this story turns out poor, I'd lose my ability to give Horikoshi the benefit of the doubt on things that bother me. If I had known how it was ending a long time ago, like before I even started doing these reactions to Season 6, I would have been frustrated a lot more things. But because I didn't know anything about the ending, I gave him some leeway. But now I know. So I know the wall we're approaching, and I know that everything I like is just crashing and exploding against it instead of stopping gracefully, I guess. That was a weird metaphor.